Hello viewers, welcome to the Bachelor course of Population Studies. In our last lecture, we discussed about population and development priorities. Today, we will talk about another topic on Population Census 2011. The Indian census has a history of more than 130 years, beginning from 1872 when the first census was conducted in India. Since then, this exercise is undertaken after every 10 years. The Indian census is the largest single source of a variety of statistical information on different characteristics of the people of India. The responsibility of conducting the decennial census rests with the Office of Registrar General and Census Commissioner India under the Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India. It may be of historical interest that though the population census of India is a major administrative function, the census organization was set up actually on ad hoc basis for each census till the 1951 census. The Census Act was enacted in 1948 to provide for the scheme of conducting population census with duties and responsibilities of the census officers. The Government of India decided in 1949 May to initiate steps for developing systematic collection of statistics on the size of population, its growth, etc., and established an organization in the Ministry of Home Affairs under Registrar General and ex officio Census Commissioner India. This organization was made responsible for generating data on population statistics, including vital statistics and census. Later, this office was also entrusted with the responsibility of implementation of Registration of Births and Deaths Act 1969 in the country. The Census 2011 is the 15th national census of the country since 1872 and the 7th after independence. It was conducted in two phases. The first phase, called the house listing or housing census, was conducted between April and September 2010, while the second phase, the population enumeration, began simultaneously all over the country from February 9, 2011 up to February 28, 2011. Now, let us discuss about the main highlights of Population Census 2011. Let us first discuss about house listing and housing census. As we have just discussed, house listing and housing census is the first phase of Census of India 2011. The objective of the house listing and housing census operations is to identify each building, census house, and also to ascertain the quality of the census house, amenities accessible to it, and the assets available to the households living in those census houses. The fundamental principle is to cover the entire country in a systematic manner without omission or duplication. And a more wonderful fact is that this information was collected on 35 items and 1.5 crore census schedules were canvassed in 16 Indian languages. A truly gigantic exercise was accomplished with clockwork precision. The key findings of this census are shown in this table. The table shows that in 2011, there were 33.1 crore houses for 24.7 crore households. Out of total houses, 22.1 crore were located in the rural areas as compared to 11 crore in urban areas, while the number of households were respectively 16.8 and 7.9 in rural and urban areas. It seems that the number of houses are more than the number of households. But if we look at the number of residential houses, the same becomes lower than the number of households, indicating the presence of homelessness along with about 2.5 crore vacant houses. However, the quality of houses has substantially improved in Census 2011 as compared to the previous censuses. In Census 2011, there were fewer houses using grass, thatch, bamboo, wood and mud as the material for roof, while the number of concrete houses increased as compared to Census 2001. Similarly, the number of houses with better material of wall and floor also increased. Moreover, the houses' amenities also improved in terms of houses with safe drinking water, sanitation facilities, etc. During the census 2011, the distribution of houses according to the main source of drinking water can be observed from this figure. The figure shows that about 32% get treated tap water, while 33.48% get it from the hand pumps. If we exclude the uncovered well and the untreated tap water, then about 79% of the households have access to safe drinking water. Actually, the housing conditions also depend upon the rural-urban location of the houses. Though the urban areas are known for better amenities for the households than their rural counterparts, yet the growth of the slums is also an urban feature. In census, a slum is defined as a residential area where dwellings are unfit for human habitation by reasons of dilapidation, overcrowding, faulty arrangements and design of such buildings, narrowness or faulty arrangements of street, lack of ventilation, light or sanitation facilities, or any combination of these factors which are detrimental to the safety and health. Census further classifies the slums into three types: the notified, recognized and the identified slums. A notified slum is categorized on basis of all the areas in a town or city notified as slum by state, UT, administration or local government under any act including Slum Act. While for recognized slum, we include all areas recognized as slum by state, UT, administration or local government, housing and slum boards which may have not been formally notified as slum under any act. Finally, an identified slum is a compact area of at least 300 population or about 60 to 70 households of poorly built, congested tenements in unhygienic environment, usually with inadequate infrastructure and lacking in proper sanitary and drinking water facilities. The Census 2011 collected the information from the towns and the cities which reported the presence of any type of slum. This information is shown on your screen. The figure shows that about 63% of the towns and cities in India have admitted the presence of slums in their administrative areas, but merely 34.3% of these slums have been notified under the Slum Act, while 28.5% were recognized but not notified, and further 37.2% were identified slums which are characterized by poor living conditions but are neither notified nor recognized by the administration. The life in these areas is much miserable as they are generally excluded from any program related with education, health and nutrition just because they are neither notified nor recognized. Now let us come to the individual characteristics by Census 2011. The population enumeration, the second phase of Census 2011, had 29 questions related with the demographics, marital status, cultural, literacy and economic aspects. Many of these aspects we have already discussed in previous lectures. However, let us have a quick look at these aspects. According to the Census 2011, the total population of a country is 1.21 billion. which means an increase of 181.96 million persons in absolute number of persons as compared to the total population in 2001, there is almost an equal increase in absolute number of males and females. The number of males increased by 90.97 million, while that of the females increased by 90.99 million. But in percentage terms, the growth rate for female was 18.3% as compared to 17.1% for the males. The density of population increased from 325 in 2001 to 382 in 2011. The sex ratio also increased from 933 to 943 per thousand males. But if we look at the child sex ratio, which is defined as the sex ratio in the age group 0 to 6 years, has actually been declining. The changes in overall and child sex ratio can be observed from this figure. The figure shows that the overall sex ratio in the country has nearly come back at its 1961 position after a continuous increase since 1991, while the child sex ratio has been declining sharply since 1981. Between 2001 and 2011 only, it has come down from 927 to 914, and it was 976 in 1961. Biologically, women have longer life than men, and since the life expectancy is increasing in the country for both the men and women, an adverse sex ratio shows a tendency of lower female births as compared to the male births in the country. This points towards the prevalence of female foeticide in the country. Among the indicators showing the quality of population, the literacy rate is also an important indicator. The Census 2011 shows that the literacy rate improved from 64.8% in 2001 to 73% in 2011. Improvements in literacy rate were greater in case of females as compared to males, but still merely 65% of women are literate as compared to about 81% for males. Both the gender gap as well as the rural-urban gap in literacy rates has been declining in each successive census. This can be observed from these figures. This figure shows the literacy rate in India by the location of residence. We can see that the literacy rate has increased in both the rural and urban areas. Since 1991, the rural literacy rate has grown more sharply vis-a-vis the urban literacy rates, resulting in sharp decline in rural-urban gap in literacy. During the period 1991 to 2011, the urban literacy rate increased from 73.1% to 84.1%, while the rural literacy rate increased from 44% to 67.8%. This led to decline in the gap in urban-rural literacy from 29.1% to 16.3%. The next figure shows the literacy rate by sex. We can see that between 1961 and 2011, the male literacy rate has increased from 43.8% to 80.9%, while the female literacy increased from 16.6% to 54.6%. This led to decline in gender gap in the literacy rate from 27.2% to 16.3%, and This decline has been the sharpest between 2001 and 2011. Another important aspect of population of India is its distribution according to social groups. The census 2011 identified 1,241 individual ethnic groups notified as scheduled caste and 705 ethnic groups notified as scheduled tribes. The percentage share of scheduled caste and scheduled tribe population in India can be observed from this table. The table shows that the proportion of both the SCs and STs increased by 0.4 percentage points between 2001 and 2011. But in case of scheduled caste, a greater increase can be observed in the urban areas, while for scheduled tribes, there was a greater increase in rural areas. The state-wise distribution of the population of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes show that among all states, Punjab has the highest proportion of its population belonging to the category of scheduled caste, while Lakshadweep has the highest proportion of its population belonging to the scheduled tribe category. About 95% of the population of Lakshadweep belongs to scheduled tribes, while in Punjab, about 32% of the population belongs to the scheduled castes. Now, let us discuss about the distribution of population by work status. According to Census 2011, a person is identified as a worker who has participated in any economically productive activity with or without compensation during the year preceding the date of enumeration. On the other hand, the non-workers are the persons who did not work at all during the reference period. It includes students, persons engaged in household duties, dependents, pensioners, beggars, etc. After classifying a person as worker or non-worker, we can find the work participation rate, which shows the percentage of workers in total population. The work participation rate in India in Census 2001 and 2011 can be observed from this table. The table shows that the work participation rate increased by 0.7 percentage points between 2001 and 2011. However, the work participation rate for the males increased by 1.6 percentage points, while for females it declined by 0.1 percentage points. In 2011, the work participation rate for the females was 25.5% as compared to 53.3% in 2011. The overall work participation rate for males and females taken together was 39.8%. The workers can be further classified into main workers and the marginal workers. The main workers are the persons who worked for 6 months or more during the reference year, while the marginal workers are the persons who worked for less than 6 months. We have already discussed in our lecture on population distribution that the percentage of main workers has declined from 77.8% in 2001 to 75.2% in 2011. Thus, more of the workers are found to be working as marginal workers in 2011 census as compared to the census 2001. Interestingly, the females' share as marginal workers declined and as main workers increased, while the exactly reverse trend in case of males can be noticed. But still, the proportion of females as marginal workers is more than that of the males. By the category of the workers also, in census 2011, the proportion of the cultivators in total workers declined, while that of the agricultural labor increased. Thus, the census 2011 indicates that the employment conditions in the country have deteriorated as compared to the census 2001. For a deeper probe in this issue, we can look at the caste-wise distribution of workers into main and marginal workers into this figure. The figure shows that the share of scheduled caste and scheduled tribes is lower in case of main workers as compared to the other social group, while in the marginal workers, the marginalized sections of the society have a greater share as compared to others. Further, within the marginal workers, though there are little caste-wise differences, but still we can observe that more of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes get employment for less than 3 months as compared to the other social group, while in case of employment of the duration of 3 to 6 months, the share of others is slightly higher than the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. This points towards a social discrimination in the Indian labor market. Now, let us come to the conclusion of this lecture. Population census is the total process of collecting, compiling, analyzing, or otherwise disseminating demographic, economic, and social data pertaining at a specific time of all persons in a country or a well-defined part of a country. As such, the census provides a snapshot of the country's population and housing at a given point of time. The population census 2011 was conducted in 2 phases, the house listing and the housing census and the population enumeration. On basis of these 2 phases, vast data is collected on various characteristics of population of India. This information has much in store for the policymakers, researchers, big businesses who want to have long-term investment in the country and many others. As every policy is for the people only, it is always important to know how much we are and how much we will be, along with the individual characteristics and the conditions we live in. The census 2011 shows various improvements in terms of education, health, living conditions, etc. But the conditions seems to be deteriorating in terms of child sex ratio and the nature of employment. The declining child sex ratio indicates the prevalence of female feticide due to preference for a son in the family. On the other hand, we have observed that the share of main workers has declined in total workers. This points towards the preference of the market in casual jobs for which there is no future responsibility. But from a worker's perspective, it means an economic and employment insecurity. Ironically, the marginalized social groups are further deprived from these already scarce good quality jobs. On the whole, though the census 2011 has indicated improvements in number of variables showing the quality of population, but as far as the distribution of those quality aspects is concerned, we can still find the gender-based, caste-based as well as the economic discrimination, and for a fair society, these should be completely eliminated. I hope you must have enjoyed this discussion. In the next lecture, we shall discuss about the long-term population projections. Till then, goodbye. Have a nice time.